2. Hi, everyone. Roger Connect, president of Universal Accounting Center. Again, here with Erin from Profit First. And this is going to be fun because of all the things we can be discussing, we're going to be discussing getting rid of debt. And that's something that I think all of us can relate to. And if nothing else, can personally feel the need to eradicate and get rid of. So, Erin, why don't you go ahead and share with us what it is that you have to share with us? That made no sense, but there you go.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you, though. Actually, I was reading something in Forbes. I heard it probably 3 years ago when I really started thinking about money for myself and retirement for myself. You know, and then in the United States, if you have $10 in your pocket and no debt, your household is richer than 25% of the homes in America.
I've seen some of the things, yes.
$10. And you don't think about it, you know, but a lot of times the financial situations we have in our homes reflect the financial situations we have in our businesses. And, you know, of course, the goal is to break that cycle so that the financial freedom in our business yields the freedom in our home. You know, I know that would have been impactful for me as a kid, but, you know, it's also, it can start now. The impact can start now, and it can trickle through generations to generations. So, you know, actually what we will be speaking about today is going to be from chapter 7 of Profit First by Mike McCallitz. And the opening line in there is, well-dressed debt or well-dressed poverty is still poverty. And I think that a lot of times when we think about poverty, we have this picture of, you know, rugged and hungry and sad. But in actuality, when we look at our world and we look at the way that we use our money, poverty is not having the means to support what we need, what we want, right? And, you know, sometimes in America, in our businesses, it can look like a nice new car. It can look like a lavish vacation. It can look like a big team when in actuality, you're 2 minutes away from bankruptcy or you're struggling to feed your family at home, right? So coming back to that piece of things, you know, when we think about our financial freedom, when we think about our businesses and how our money functions, debt is a very serious piece of the puzzle. But a lot of times, we think about debt and our first thought is, I cannot be profitable until I eliminate it. But at Profit First Professionals, we believe just the opposite. There are two things that we preach every single day. One is, if you want to be debt-free, you need to be profitable. And two, you need to pay yourself. You are the most important person in your business. Debt or no debt, you need to make sure you're providing for your home, for your family, for yourself. And so today, my goal is to share with you some tips and tricks and ways that we can go about providing a little bit more peace in the subject of debt. So the first things first.
Hold on, before you jump into that, there's a few things that I'd like to just add to the introduction, because I think something here that's very important to realize is that so many of us bring our personal beliefs about money, our relationships with money into the business that we're running. And so if we have an unhealthy personal relationship or familiar relationship with finances, that will translate into the companies in a variety of ways. And so one of the things that I often see as I'm consulting with business owners is if they have let's say a misunderstanding of their relationship with money or an unhealthy relationship with money, it tends to manifest itself quite repeatedly within the company. And so I like how you're sharing that it's sometimes that burden that individuals face or carry on their backs, and it's just not so obvious to everyone around. But when you get into either the marital relationship or the family relationship or the company, you'll find that there are these underlying weights that are sometimes really burdening people that hold us back from the successes that we're trying to experience. And so I like how you've set this up, because I believe so many of us can relate to the fact that there have been different times in our lives, perhaps even now, that are debt-ridden, or we're fearing or experiencing that weight of the debt.
Yeah. Well, and I mentioned, I didn't start even thinking about this until I had an economics. Somebody shared with me how, you know, if you don't start saving for retirement, it increases by thousands of dollars a month, even at age 25. And I started freaking out. And I was like, well, I don't even have my student loans paid off. How am I supposed to do that? And that's when I started thinking about debt. And the fact of the matter is, money in general, Profit First is a cash management system that's based on behavior. And the reason this is so important is you need to pay yourself. You need to take your profit first. And I say that gently, not demandingly. We need to do that because that changes our habits. It changes how we think about money. And the only way to solve the problem is addressing it at the root. Okay, sidebar, I completely hate weeding. Okay, I do it so much and my whole yard is like 90% weeds. And I don't know about you, but you really cannot get rid of them unless you get rid of the entire root. And that's the truth of our money. You know, you're not going to solve the financial crisis you may be experiencing right now by covering it up with these quick fixes. It's going to take some drastic approaches. And today I'm going to inoculate you a little bit. It's going to be a little drastic at times, and it's uncomfortable to talk about, but it's important for us to look at the end result and what would happen if we don't. And a lot of times just that recognition, it changes how we think about the small decisions we might have to make today. So our goal in this is paying ourselves, preparing for profit, regardless of the circumstance, because it creates the habits, it gets us thinking in a different way. And that's how we ultimately are going to change the stroke of our business, the stroke of our finances. And hopefully with that, we'll be part of that 25% that is really kicking it with $10 in our pocket and no debt, right? So the way that we do this is first and foremost laser focus. We need to be laser focused on generating and facilitating a super, super healthy business. And by doing this, of course, it's going to position us to be serving our clients and producing the products that we are hoping to serve and to our ideal clients, right? It's a whole cycle of things, but it all starts with choosing intentionally to be our healthiest selves. And when we make that decision and we're focused on even the little things, it adds up in big, big ways. So I know this is a really small concept, and this is one of those get rich quick tips, right? Stay focused. But this is a foundational piece in the process because it's not always going to be easy. Focus, though, allows us to stay persistent and diligent, and that's where the change comes. So
Now,
as we're going through...
Well, one of the things I'd want to just interject there is the fact that when we work with our coaching clients, one of the things that we always emphasize is clarity. And so I like how you've used the word laser focused. It's the same concept. It's unless you're clear on what you're trying to accomplish, unless you're honed in, put the blinders on, it's sometimes very distracting, all the other things that may come up. So I like how you've introduced that.
Yeah, thank you. Well, and you know what? Part of it is too, as you can see here, part of it is you have to acknowledge when you're doing a good job. Behavior. Acknowledging and celebrating when you choose not to spend. Every time you do it, you don't have to spend a dime to do it. I mean, sell 5, go for a walk, put on your favorite song, host yourself a dance party. You know, you can do things that are little throughout your day. And we live in a world where you could be tempted with online shopping 18 times a day. If you log on to even a private business Facebook group, you're being bombarded by ads on the side of the last thing that you Googled, right? Temptation is all around us. So every time you actively choose not to click on the ad, and if you fill your cart, every time you choose not to put your card in there, celebrate it. That's a big deal. And it all adds up in a big way. So that focus really allows us, again, in these situations to say no, but we don't want to neglect how powerful not now, no can be. But a lot of times too, is it isn't just willy-nilly. I think a lot of times we expect for this to just happen. Debt-free just happens. If I just keep paying the minimum payments, maybe a little extra here and there, it's just going to happen. If I just choose not to spend here and there, it's not going to happen, right? Discipline is important, but we're human. We're human, and it's not always easy. So of course, having your account set up and utilizing the Profit First system does allow for a more checks and balances, but there really is power in a system. So actually, this is one of the things that I just started implementing I heard a story Mike Michalowicz shared it with me, believe it or not. That changed the way I think about my grocery shopping, and I'll share that in a second. But he had been out and traveling, and he was meeting with a buddy. And I mentioned a story that involved Home Depot. This one also involved Home Depot. And they were coming home from the airport, and his buddy was like, oh, I have to stop at Home Depot one of these days. And so Mike was like, oh, there's Home Depot. Let's just go. He's like, no, it's okay. We're fine. We'll keep going. And they had gone out later, even that week, again, passed by Home Depot where it was convenient. Mike's like, let's go to Home Depot. And he's like, no. For the sake of the story, it happened 12 more times. And Mike is like, bud, do you have a problem with procrastination? Why aren't we going again? Come on. Home Depot's right there. Just do it. And his buddy literally told him, if I've been able to go this long without stopping at Home Depot, do you think I actually really need to stop at Home Depot? He had established a process of putting it off X amount of times. And he had determined 4 was going to be his number before he was able to eliminate that as a need in his life, right? He had established a process of spending where I am not going to go and buy it. If I can say no 4 times to it and it doesn't affect my day-to-day, my efficiencies, my cash flow, then how impactful really is it? And a lot of times that process can be applied in simple situations. I actually started this with my grocery shopping. You know, those days where you open your refrigerator and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to starve. There's nothing in here. And your first reaction is, okay, well, I'm going to make a list. I need to go grocery shopping right away, or you're ordering pizza, right? So my husband and I, we have implemented, you cannot do anything drastic for 2 days. Okay. We chose 2 days because we do want to live, right? But instead of us going to the grocery store with our list or buying pizza or ordering out, what we do is we have to leverage our pantry and our freezer. And, you know, what you'll find is you have 5 or 6 meals that you can make out of those things, right? And what we've done is we started off with 2 days. We're able to go to 4 days. And now when I'm shopping, I'm not just shopping in that moment. I'm thinking ahead of time, okay? I'm still keeping to that budget, but I'm thinking a little bit more realistically in terms of how my household functions and that 2, 3, 4, 5 day buffer that we've now initiated in our home. And it changed how I budget my groceries and how much longer that money goes. And so our home, we were able to save $150 a month just by something so simple. So it can be that, giving yourself some time buffer, you know, putting some parameters in place around that. You know, sometimes it's accountability. Hey, every time I spend X amount, I need to consult somebody. Or I have a team member come in and needs to verify and ask me questions and position me to justify this. You know what I mean? Whatever it looks like, take a stab at it, right? The other thing that's really simplistic that we often don't think about because we do live in a world of convenience is our reoccurring purchases. You know, when we have an automatic bill come out, it's freedom, it's efficiency. We love those 2 things, right? But there's power when you got to spend that money. When you're watching that money go to something, now you're thinking about what that money is doing, what that something is producing. And when we look at our finances in this light, when we just put these little tiny things in place, it can ultimately affect how we are positioned to be able to pay down our debt. So the next thing is, you know, and this is another one that we don't often think about, but think about how you think about your goals. When you are budgeting, when you're talking about, you know, what your plans are for the next couple months, are you using your best months to budget, or are you using your worst months to budget? We are very optimistic people, right? And that's a good thing. It also can be a very dangerous thing, especially in a situation like this. If we aren't actually structuring our spending and our positioning in our finances around when we are going to be at our worst, it's really difficult to maintain that, especially accountants and bookkeepers. You know, it's kind of hard having your heavy season in that first phase of the year where January, February, March, April looks really kind of nice. And then you have the whole rest of the year. So the decisions that you make in January, February, March, April, when you have a lot of cash, they can impact you for a long time after, right? So same thing stands. You think about how you're thinking about your goals. Think about how you're budgeting, how you're setting up your finances, and what numbers you're using. If you remember from the assessment, one of the most powerful aspects of it is using that real revenue number, taking out what you need to produce your good and your services, and identifying what that real number is, real revenue number is. Think about your business in that light. Think about your monthly budgeting in the light of your worst month. See what that does for your spending. The other thing that we need to do, and this is where we're going to be getting a little bit more extreme, and it might yield a little bit of angst thinking about it, talking about it, but there's power in it. This is where you get to see your decision-making process come to life, and the effects of that decision-making process. So we need to do a little bit of a hack job, okay? If you are operating above and beyond your means and you are incurring debt on a regular basis, or you have debt that you have incurred that you can't pay down, this is the opportunity to create more balance in your finances. And it's not always super comfortable. We spoke last time about a way that you can go about your financial expenses and eliminating them, right? This one is a little bit more extreme. And actually, you can find it in the book, chapter 7, page 121. It goes through 131, but I think this is on page 121 on the nose. So when you are going through your expenses, when we went through the other one, we were looking at our P&L. We were looking at things in nice big chunks. You know, you see your meals and entertainment, and you're like, oh, $1,000, that's not too shabby. In this perspective, we are getting down into the trenches. It's kind of similar to what you were mentioning last time, Roger, where you had the 1, 2, 3 structure. Yeah. But this time, what we're doing is we're using letters because we're all about our letters.
Yes.
Yeah. And so what we'll do is we'll print out all of our accounts receivable. We'll print out all of our credit card statements. We're going to print out all of our bank statements, all of our loan statements, our lease statements, everything that shows that you have spent any kind of money. We are going to print it out. We are going to look at every single line item and classify it based on these 3 letters. P stands for profitable. Does it yield profitability? R, is it replaceable? Is there another option out there that can do the same job at a better rate, right? Or whether it's efficiency rate or price rate, right? U is unnecessary. Going through each statement, each line item, and looking at this. So here's the thing, you know, the P&L and the expense analysis that we did before, it's a really interesting way to dive into our numbers. But like I mentioned, that meals and entertainment, that $1,000, not so bad. You look at it in this light, it's 700 coffees, right? Now all of a sudden you're gonna be like, holy cow, maybe I should just get a Keurig. You know what I mean? So this is a really impactful way for us to think about what we're spending. So
one of the things that I wanted to just jump in here on is if you go back to step 3 and you correlate that with this one, oftentimes what business owners experience is if you hand them the expense detail, they could go through this exercise, but I think there's another experience that also takes place. And it's that there's oftentimes these line items in the expense that honestly, they don't even know what they are. And that's where the scare really comes in, is they can't even put the PR or U next to it because they look at that line item and they're like, you know what, I honestly don't know what this is. This is not familiar to me. And it's either a reflection of, one, it's not being categorized correctly or reported correctly so that it's too vague or it's unclear, or they're lumping things together and they're calling them something too generic. Or the second thing is they're running their business and they're just not paying attention to the details because there's transactions going on that they're not aware of. And so what's scary to me is when you get through this whole exercise, how many things actually don't even have a P, an R, or a U next to them because they don't even know what they are.
Yeah, it's really true. It's really true. So, and there's power in questions. So you bring up another great point. Even if you go through this and you don't find a lot of use, I'm sure that you will have a lot better questions about the things that are in there. Why they exist? Where are they going to bring us? Why are they not producing profitability? Oh, why haven't I replaced this? It's been here for 3 years. That gets us thinking in a lot deeper sense about the money that we're utilizing. And I mean, this is where that laser focus comes into play. You do this exercise now. In a week from now, you're still going to be thinking about every time you swipe that card. You're going to be thinking about every piece of the puzzle. That ultimately changes the way you use your money. And it happens somewhat naturally. Drastic decisions, drastic opportunities like this do change our financial situation. It's the long run that helps us to maintain it. So spending the time establishing those habits, getting into that mindset, asking the questions, it changes how we think about money. And it honestly, this becomes a little bit addictive. It's exciting.
It actually is.
Yeah. There's power in just saying, all right, I'm done. I'm not going to do that anymore. How can I do this? If it is coffee, stop buying coffee. Maybe you can get your own coffee grinder, have really delicious coffee for $100 less a month. You know what I mean? So think about it in a different light. Think about the positives too. I know I've been a little negative today, and I'm sorry, everybody. Okay. This isn't just a negative thing. It's scary. It's uncomfortable. There's a lot of change involved, but this is a really exciting thing. Now is a time where you get to utilize the brain that you have been given, because you are all very smart people. You all have a beautiful insight and perspective. You all have a skill set that you're able to share. By doing this, you are positioning yourself to have the financial means to use that and experience the benefit of it with every client, with every customer, with every purchase. We aren't just eliminating, but we are placing ourselves we're putting ourselves in a place where we're able to really capitalize on the things that we have, the gifts and the talents and the finances that we have. So this might seem a little scary now, but in the long run, this is a powerful, powerful tool.
So there's two things I want to throw in here. One is on the personal side. For the accountants listening to this, one of the things that I think too often is mistaken is taking the time to work on your own business. And it's taking your own advice, those things that you're asking and sharing your customers should do. Are you doing them as well? And so here's an excellent example of taking out your own P&L. It's taking out your own expense details and literally starting to apply these principles to your own company. And by doing so, you're working now on your business. But the second thing is these are phenomenal tools and techniques that when applied with your clients, they start to see you as being more than simply just the accountant, coming in and dropping off the financial reports. Starting to ask these questions and do these exercises with your clients is very empowering because they'll see you in a different light. They start to see you as that strategic, trusted advisor. They start to see you as someone that they can turn to help maneuver through these business challenges that they're experiencing. And you have these strategies that you can use to help them see that there is a method to this accounting madness. They can actually now use these tools that you're providing them, the reports, to now make more intelligent business decisions. And this process for a client is very telling because now they're going to start seeing you as being more than just that historian recording the transactional reports. It's now you're starting to step into that consultative relationship. And honestly, you can now start getting paid much better for your worth because of the services you're offering in this light. So this is perfect. I love this, Erin. This is what we need to be saying right now.
Yeah, it's definitely a two-way street. It's a win-win across the board. And if you do want to learn a little bit more about this, page 126 in Profit First by Mike Michalowicz, there's a whole breakdown of everything. And once we see what is in that uncut or unnecessary, we're going to cut it. We're going to eliminate it. We have to make some drastic decisions and be actionable in it. Then we're going to take our profit and our replaceables and we're going to add up all of those things. We're going to add up all of those things. And I encourage you too, while you do this, highlight the things that are reoccurring, whether it happens twice in a year or happens 12 times in a year. Highlight those. Think about the full picture of things. So once you add all of your expenses up, everything for that year, divide it by 12. What does your monthly nut look like? What are you responsible for? And so here's the kicker. Okay. That nut is really important. This is what you need to function every single month. Now you have an idea, be above and beyond. It's a very practical perspective of what you need to be able to cover your responsibility. And this doesn't include owners paying tax, right? We don't want to just end there. But what does that nut look like for you to function in your operations on a regular basis? And we need to make sure that we have that provided for, right? So even beyond this, when we go back and we look at the assessment that we did, our operating expense target, what did that look like? Once you take into account that versus where you're at now, what's the difference? What can we do to eliminate that difference? Eliminate that difference with a 10% buffer. Here's the other thing. When we're making drastic changes like this, we have to be prepared for the unforeseen situations, right? Something's not going to go right. Something's going to come up and it's going to overdraw your account. So what we do typically, not overdraw your account because we're going to be proactive with this next piece, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to try and even cut 10% beyond this. And this is where, again, it's a lot of action involved, a lot of change involved. It's a little bit uncomfortable. In the long run, though, you cannot pay down debt if you're facilitating and generating debt on a regular basis. So we need to be profitable to pay down debt. We need to pay ourselves consistently to pay down debt, but we also need to get rid of the unnecessary expenditures that we have that are incurring debt. So now that we've gone through and we talked about how to put ourselves in a place where we are functioning within our means, and that's really what this is. That's really what this is. This is bringing us to a place where we are no longer going to incur debt, right? Now, how do we get rid of the debt that we have? Profit first, we use the Dave Ramsey snowball debt elimination process, okay? We have our own little twist utilizing profit first. So that profit account that we have been so diligently building up throughout this whole process, we are going to use it for our debt, okay? At the end of every quarter, you are to take a profit distribution as a profit first professional. If you are as a profit first professional or as a profit first implementer, okay, you are going to be taking a chunk of your profit from that quarter, 50%, and taking it out of the business. 1% is going to go to you as the business owner because you deserve to celebrate. You've done a good job this quarter, focusing on your business, making good decisions. Now that 99% that is left, we are going to use that to pay down our debt. And the Dave Ramsey debt snowball structure is positioned in a way that we are going to focus on our smallest debt first. Okay, we are going to start with the smallest debt responsibility. Doesn't matter what the interest rate looks like, doesn't matter any other variables unless they are seriously extreme. We're going to start with that smallest debt first. We're going to take that 99% and we are going to put that towards that payment, right? We are going to pay our minimum payments with a chunk. You know, if you can finagle your implementation to have a debt account to pay a little extra, or if you can put $50 more a month, do it, right? We are going to take what we typically pay a month towards that smallest debt, and we are going to pay that towards it. We are going to use our profit distribution every quarter, pay it towards it till we eliminate that debt. And this is credit cards, loans. This can be any liabilities that you have outside of a home, right? We start with those really high interest rates. Then once you've paid down that smallest debt, now we're going to go to the next. And we're going to utilize the resources that we were using on a regular basis for that smaller debt, but we're going to throw it towards that next smallest debt. And we're going to do this until we have eliminated all of our credit cards, loans, and everything that we're paying for on a monthly basis. And then we're going to start hacking away at our buildings and paying down those mortgages, getting rid of those big, chunky responsibilities that we have. And then once we get to a point where we are free of debt, then you get to really celebrate and take your distribution in full. Now you can start saving towards that retirement with every dollar that you have on hand. Now you can start preparing for those awesome growth strategies that you have with every dollar on hand. But now you don't have to worry about the stress of that responsibility. And that is a huge piece too. And again, every decision that we make here, that impacts our household, that impacts our home. And you'll find that a lot of times when you're in a place like this, making decisions in your business, it's a little natural for you to take them home and start thinking about that in that light as well. So ultimately, our goal is to be debt free. In all of this, though, guys, accountability is huge. We were just talking about expenses and having somebody, be a second set of eyes in it. We were just talking about being a professional at what you do and coming on alongside your client and asking them questions about their expenses, talking to them about those things. But who do you have in your life to be that advisor, to be that second set of eyes and that perspective? If you do not have somebody, I encourage you, start thinking about what characteristics you're looking for in that accountability partner or advisor, and spend some time jotting it down, thinking about where you could find that. Of course, as a Profit First professional, this is what we do with our clients all day long. This is what we do with our clients all day long. And this is where it gets fun, because again, this is something that trickles into every aspect of our lives. And freedom from debt is one step closer to financial freedom in a really big way.
Well, one of the things that I think is powerful about this is that it's a very proactive way to improve the current situation. It's to get that monkey off of our back and obviously at the end of the day, be, as you've described, debt-free. Now, one of the things that I'd like to throw out there for the accounting professionals is there's a way to really look at this. If you are looking at the balance sheet, obviously you've got your current liabilities, you've got your long-term liabilities. That was basically where Erin was talking about then getting into the mortgages and so forth. So we can really see the impact of this on the balance sheet. As you're implementing these strategies, it starts to manifest itself in the reports that you're producing. So whether it be for your own financials or that of your clients, this is where you start to see the ratios of the company starting to change, such as the current ratio of the business, the liquidity ratio of the business. These things are essential to running a profitable company. Now, one of the things that then can be quite fun and exciting is you can actually then start tackling things such as things that are being amortized or prepaid expenses. It's not necessarily just debt that you're having to worry about, but it's making the business that much cleaner and that much more profitable, much more valuable. And that's one of the things that with philosophy and this implementation, you start to realize because you're being proactive about it all. So becoming that profit first advisor, that profit first professional is huge. And so anyone out there interested in becoming more consultative in the accounting services that you're providing, Profit First is an excellent program to actually get those skill sets and become, in fact, a profit first professional. The other thing I'd like to say is these principles aren't just for clients. They are for yourself. And Erin's done a phenomenal job of saying, let's practice what we preach. And I know this is very true, that when a profit first professional is beginning the training, the very first thing we want to do is apply these principles in our own companies. What we need to do is practice what we preach. And so what I'm going to do is basically provide a little bit of information down in the description that will enable you to have access to what it is that you can do to literally apply these principles in your own company and become, for your clients, this trusted advisor that is strategic, and most importantly, you're paid for that valuable service that you're providing. So, Erin, any final thoughts that you'd like to share as we wrap this up then?
No, just one small step in the right direction is still a step in the right direction. If you don't spend on something that's tempting, high five yourself, celebrate. You don't have to do the whole thing to experience the impact. Start small. If it's a lot to swallow, mull it over, think about it, do little things because they add up to big things. Ultimately, hopefully that'll lead to a full-on rollout of your debt eradication, of your financial freedom.
I think it was said best, and I believe the movie What About Bob? It was baby steps.
I love that movie.
Baby steps. Just baby steps, and you'll be just fine. So with that in mind, understand this, everybody. If it's about accounting, it is universal. Thank you so much. Take care. And Erin, wonderful presentation. I appreciate it. Look forward to the next one. Bye-bye, everybody.
Me too. I love What About Bob. I haven't thought